Hey, what's up, guys? So it's the end of 2020, thank goodness. And I'm sure we're all happy about that. But there was some good things that came out of 2020, and those good things are video games. And after playing quite a few of these games, I was able to come up with, finally, after a lot of thinking and going through things in my head as to how I would possibly rank these games and pick my top 5 of the year. I was able to come up with that top 5. We're going to go over that in this video. But real quick, before we jump in, check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/theroguevanian. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. Also, check out my Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, especially lately. So go on twitter.com/roguevanian. You guys can check out everything. I'll put updates on there. I tweet just random stuff. It's a good time. So check it out. I also just put up my Discord invite link to the Rogue Vanian Discord. Become a fellow Vanian in my community. I'm building it up. There's some collaboration going on, chat going on. So check that out. Join if you guys want to. And let's get started. So before I get into giving you my top 5, I just want to let you know that this is my personal top 5 list. No way am I saying this is the definitive top 5 games of 2020. It's my own personal list that I made of games that I played in 2020. If you go back to my video that I posted not too long ago, it's a couple games that I personally am ashamed that I didn't play that came out in 2020. And because I didn't play those games wouldn't show up in my top 5 list because I didn't play them. So there may be some games that may have made my top 5 list, but this list is only games that I personally have played, and I'm picking my top 5 of the year. Just wanted to clear that up. My number 5 game is Hades. Hades by Supergiant Games went into early access in 2018, and after almost 2 years, the official release came on September 17th, 2020, resulting in one of the best games of the year. Everything about this game, from the characters, art style, voice acting, dialogue, and gameplay, is presented remarkably. The attention to detail was something that really stuck out in my playthroughs, and trust me, there was many playthroughs. And the amount of time and effort put into this game really shows. One example of this would be the many dialogue changes in every playthrough, where I felt like at a point the dialogue chains were never going to repeat. Also, all of the more than a handful weapons which you can choose, one per run through, felt super fun to use, to the point where I found it difficult to choose which was my favorite. There were also upgraded skills in which even a small percentage of an increase gave you enough incentive to feel confident going into your next playthrough. Another thing I loved was the branched levels, which allowed choices for you to go towards specific buffs in the next set of procedurally generated rooms. This gave a real sense of choice with stakes, and could be the difference between succeeding or being destroyed, having to go back to the main hub. And the controls in Hades are tight, and the action was challenging but fair, with difficult but fun boss fights. To top things off, there's even a builder system, which adds another layer of complexity to the already plentiful systems in Hades. This contributes to areas being generated through your run-through that can become highly beneficial, assisting in building fountain healing areas and other dungeon rooms that would otherwise never show up unless upgraded through the builder in the hub area. Once you think you're stacked with skills, stats, and upgrades, there's still plenty of challenge. Hades always keeps you in check, never allowing you to completely feel comfortable with thinking you're going to have a definite successful run, and even some boss fights have stronger variations to keep you on your toes. I never thought dying so many times in a game could be so much fun. Hades has plenty to enjoy, and it was a blast going through the underworld multiple times. If you haven't played this yet, put it on your must playlist because you'll be glad you did. My number 4 game of 2020 was Demon's Souls Remake by Bluepoint Games. Obviously, this is a remake of the original PS3 game by From Software, and the original Demon's Souls for PS3 was what started the Souls genre, and I have to say, Bluepoint Games did a phenomenal job on the remake. Apparently, the original source code was used, which makes the entire game feel exactly as it did, but with a much higher performance due to the PS5's next-gen graphics and SSD drive. This game is gorgeous, not only serving as a beautiful showcase for a launch title on the PS5, but this is the definitive way to play Demon's Souls. In a game that was difficult to get into a groove for the PS3, the addition of the super fast, almost non-existent load times courtesy of the PS5's proprietary SSD allows for staying immersed in the gorgeous world that has been created, allowing you to be able to jump back in and try again after the many deaths before you. One thing that I really liked about Demon's Souls was the level design. Each level is designed in such a way that once reaching far to reach areas allows for activating permanent shortcuts, or defeating bosses allows for checkpoints to return to areas that were once a long haul. These are all made into a much quicker return. The systems in the game are not overly complex, allowing for your attributes and weapons to be upgraded by using souls as payment. When upgrading attributes, this also raises your level as well. Another aspect of Demon's Souls that makes a game of this difficulty a blast to play is the number of challenging boss battles that you'll endure during your journey. These battles are not all completed as a mere dodge and counter formula, but rather each has their own strategies needed in order to defeat them. Some will require long range attacks, some will require a weakness to fire, etc. The variety of bosses allows for your strategies to be different, which keeps things new and exciting. Demon's Souls pulled me in from the start, and despite its unforgiving gameplay, it's my number 4 game of 2020. In 2018, Insomniac Games released Spiderman PS4, and many would say it was the best or one of the best games of that year. It was a fantastic game, had a great cast of characters and bad guys, including the Sinister Six, had cool upgrades and suits, and was full of fun and memorable cinematic moments. 2 years later, Insomniac did it again and released my number 3 game of 2020, and that's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Insomniac gave us another smaller but equally or more impressive Spider-Man story centering around, you guessed it, Miles Morales. The gameplay on the PS5 is fluid with essentially minimal to no load times. There's 3 modes. You have the fidelity, performance, and performance ray tracing, which was actually added a couple weeks after the game's release, with gorgeous smooth visuals, great story beats, and super stylish and cool boss fights. Despite its shorter playtime, it was able to refine everything that Spider-Man PS4 did and make it even tighter. If you want extras, there's also a fair amount of additional content to keep you occupied as well, with a similar style as the extras as Spider-Man PS4. The upgrade system is familiar from playing Spider-Man PS4, but they add some welcome new skills to Miles' moveset that makes Miles Spider-Man mostly similar but slightly different than Peter Parker's skills. The more focused experience makes it seem like the beautiful and extremely fun set pieces are more frequent and that the action is non-stop. Miles Morales is an incredible thrill ride, and I can't wait to see what Insomniac has in store for Miles and Peter Parker next. In January of 2019, Capcom released one of my favorite games that year, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Resident Evil 2 Remake was reimagined from the ground up using the RE engine, also used in RE7 and all future RE titles. Despite this, it still gave a welcome familiarity and nostalgia that diehard Resident Evil 2 fans could love and appreciate as much as newcomers of the series. The gameplay was much more refined from the original, with the tank controls being scrapped and replaced with a much more responsive third-person over-the-shoulder view that didn't take away from the survival horror spirit of the original, and the puzzles were very much intact as well. Not to mention the graphics were gorgeous. It was something special, and the remake formula would make its return again in 2020 with my number 2 game of the year, and that's Resident Evil 3 Remake. Releasing only a year and a couple months after Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake kept a very similar formula. When initially released, the original Resident Evil 3 was not the fan favorite that Resident Evil 2 was, and despite the lack of branching story beats that the original Resident Evil 3 had, having a single path-focused story in Resident Evil 3 Remake was still stellar. It may not have had the play length, which by the way was still a solid experience of Resident Evil 2 Remake, but it certainly had the heart. Resident Evil 3 Remake still had survival horror moments, great puzzles, and the Nemesis encounters were unique and full of fun. I think one criticism that others had was the fact that it was more action-based, which to me was perfectly fine considering the original game was more action-focused anyway. Don't let this one slip out of your radar if you haven't played it yet. Now we have to wait only a little longer for Resident Evil Village, and I can't wait. Now the moment you guys have all been waiting for, and 2020 had a ton of awesome games that were released, and there was also a ton of games that I'm really interested in playing that were released in 2020, and like I said earlier, if you guys haven't checked it out, I actually give some of the games that I feel very ashamed that I didn't play in 2020. And if you guys are interested in seeing those games, and obviously if you're wondering why I didn't pick certain games for my top 5 list that maybe were no-brainers for you, it might be on that list, so go check that video out as well. But 2020 did have a lot of great games, and out of all those games, my number one game of 2020 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. The original Final Fantasy VII was released in the US in 1997, bringing RPGs basically to the mainstream. This was my first JRPG I had ever played, and while I had watched my older cousins playing the SNES Final Fantasy games, I didn't officially become a JRPG fan until I got my hands on Final Fantasy VII, which really sparked my love for the genre going forward. In fact, I remember seeing the commercials on TV and having that game be the main reason I wanted a PlayStation. I'd never been into a game so much in my life, and it is one that to this day, if you ask me what my favorite game of all time would be, I will without hesitation smile and say Final Fantasy VII hands down, no questions asked. This brings me to Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was originally a tease in 2005 at E3, where they showed off a PlayStation 3 tech demo that basically had everyone thinking that Final Fantasy Remake could be a possibility. So finally, in 2015, they announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake was going to be happening, and it took another 5 years to release. So at that point, I was very skeptical, but man, the wait was worth it. Getting our hands on Final Fantasy Remake really meant that we were getting the Midgar portion of the game. Now, originally in Final Fantasy VII, this section was only about 9 to 10 hours of gameplay. So they were able to make this portion of the game in Remake a 30 to 40 hour game. And that's not including doing every single extra or playing on hard mode. Now, despite more installments coming, this game is a masterpiece. Every aspect of this game blew me away. Even though there were a couple low-res textures in a couple areas and some slow movements in a few set pieces, the game was perfect in every other way. The characters are awesome. The voice cast did a phenomenal job of capturing each character, down to the point where I felt like these were the same voices I heard in my head reading the text in the original. The battle system is one of the best, if not the best battle system ever created, combining action and the ATB battle system together while also having a full functioning materia system, even with weapon upgrade trees. This game is meaty with RPG elements. Also, the boss fights, and I'm gonna say it right now, this game has the best boss fights of any game I've ever played. They're epic, they're beautiful, and they're so much fun. A fight like Airbuster, which was a quick early boss fight in the original, was given a treatment as if it was a final boss fight. They managed to do this the whole entire game. Also, the soundtrack freaking rocks. The dynamic sound is one of the coolest and original ideas I've seen utilized in a video game, and I'm surprised the game hasn't won more awards just for the sound alone. I even love the story and even the twist in it at the end, which I won't spoil for anyone, but honestly, Final Fantasy VII Remake comes down to doing the original justice, and putting so much love into a game that so many others absolutely adore and cherish. please do yourself a favor and play this game. It is one of the best I've played in my entire life. The only thing now is we just have to wait for part 2. Well, there you have it. That's my top 5 games of 2020. And let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm assuming that you all have your own top 5 lists, and that was mine. If you want to, check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/theroguevanian, and I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. And also, I'm pretty active on my Twitter, so check out my Twitter as well. It's twitter.com/roguevanian. I just put up my Discord. Check that out too. The links are below. If you guys like this video, hit like, subscribe, or hit the bell for notifications to get notified on all future videos. Anyway, hope you all have a great day or night wherever you're at, and I'll catch you all later.
All right, no. Drop it. Drop it. Cut the shit. You gotta be kidding me. They're coming from behind? Oh, wow.